Grace and peace, everyone. Welcome to the Truth Seekers with Randy McFoy. This is the channel where I help seekers of the truth find the truth in the Word of God. Guys, forgive me if I seem a little irritated in today's Bible study. Forgive me if I seem a little irritated. I've been approached about a song that is that is very popular in Word of Faith circles, and it's called "Speak into the Atmosphere." It's called "Speak," or sometimes the title is called "Speak into the Atmosphere," and it's by an artist called Myron Butler. Right now, I haven't listened to his albums. I don't know any other songs, so I'm not condemning him. I'm not judging him. I'm not saying anything about his personal walk with Christ. I'm not saying anything against his albums or if his worship songs are unbiblical or not. I'm not saying anything like that, right? I'm just looking at this specific song, right? This specific song, and I'm going to show it here. Now it says, it's not a lot of words, right? Unfortunately, a lot of worship songs today, forgive my lights. A lot of worship songs today doesn't have a lot of words, right? It could be a 4-minute song and it could have like a total of 10 words in the whole song, right? So it's not a lot of words, not a lot of depth, but this is the song here. It says, I shall have what I decree. Yes, I believe it belongs to me. Simple word, believe it, sing. I shall have what I decree. Yes, I believe it belongs to me. Then it goes on to say, whatever God has decreed to you, speak it into the atmosphere. So whatever God has decreed to you, don't pray it back to God. That's not what that's not what the song is saying. No, he's not saying pray it to God. He says speak into the atmosphere. Listen, guys, words mean something. Okay, we want to be mature people. Words mean something, right? So he says speak into the atmosphere, not speak to God, not pray to God, but speak into the atmosphere. Then it says, lay your hands on yourself, which is a very strange thing, right? And I've seen it in churches, and lay your hands on yourself, right? Biblically, we lay our hands on other people, right? So this self, yeah. So then it continues, I shall have what I decree, right? It belongs to me. And then it says you gotta open your mouth and speak into the atmosphere. Like this song is saying, this artist is saying you gotta do it, right? You gotta do it. Whatever it is, just speak it. Speak it, declare its mind, healing, deliverance, right? If you believe it, you will receive it. We look at the previous video, we looked at what that actually means. And he's saying speak over your home, speak over your finances. Not pray to God for your home. Not pray to God for your finances. Not pray for health, right? But speak over it, right? Speak over your home. Speak over your finances. Speak over your ministry and your health, right? And then it has a bridge that says, it's mine, it's mine, it's mine, it's mine. So I listened to the song. I read the lyrics in my Bible studies and in all three of my classes. I asked them what they thought about this particular song, and I received some very interesting responses and some encouraging responses. What I mean by encouraging means that they understand this song is not biblical. This song is not worship towards God, right? And this song plays in church services, Sunday services, as a worship song, part of the worship segment. Guys, this is not a worship song, right? This is self-worship. This is presuming on the authority that we have, presuming on something that we believe God has given to us, and we're singing about an ability that we assume that we have, right? Even if it's true that we have this ability, why are we singing about it, right? When Jesus gave the disciples the authority to cast out demons and to heal, the disciples came back and they said demons obeyed us and we was healing the sick and raising the dead, and they was excited about their abilities. And Jesus' response was this: don't rejoice because you did signs and wonders. I'm paraphrasing, but don't rejoice because you did signs and wonders, but rejoice that your name is written in the Lamb book of life. Basically, he's saying rejoice that you're saved. Right? Not don't rejoice at what you can do, but rejoice that you're saved. Right? So that's some of the responses that I have. That it's not worship, it's self-worship. It's about material things, right? My personal opinion, guys, take it or leave it, I believe this is a wicked song. I believe it's wicked. I'm not saying the artist is wicked. Hear me out, guys. I don't know the artist. I haven't listened to his album. I'm not saying he's wicked. I'm not saying he has bad intentions. I'm not saying he's not a godly man. None of that stuff. I'm saying this particular song, right? Removing it from the artist. Just looking at the words of the song. It's a wicked song. It's a song that is all focused on glorifying self. Right? Glorifying self. It's about I. It's mine, it's mine, it's mine. That's not worship. So let's talk about worship for a little bit, right? Let's talk about worship. What is worship? The word worship actually means to bow down. It means to prostrate oneself. It means to fall down, right? It is an expression of reverence. It's an expression of reverence, right? So when you look at that song, who is being revered in that song? It's not, listen, God, you could say it's God, but if you was to be honest with yourself, that song is not showing reverence to God. If you just be honest, just be objective, right? Only time God is mentioned is when it says whatever God has decreed to you, right? So it's not reverence. It's not a reverence towards God. In ancient times, right, kings were worshipped. If you see in movies in medieval times, when they approached the king, they would bow down. A lot of kings would want worship. King Nebuchadnezzar wanted his statue worship, right? So in ancient times, kings were worshipped. In biblical times, angels received worship, right? But they would reject it. Right? They was like, don't worship me, right? Don't worship me, right? Angels rejected worship, the good angels, right? We all know that Satan wanted to receive worship and wanted to, be exalted over God. Wicked men worship false gods. Wicked men worship false gods, right? We see when Israel was out of Egypt, they made a golden calf and they worshiped it and said, this is the God that delivered me out of Egypt. Now let's look at Psalm 33, 1 through 6.
Rejoice in the Lord, O you righteous, for praise from the upright is beautiful. Praise the Lord with the harp. Make melody to him with an instrument of 10 strings. Sing to him a new song. Play skillfully with a shout of joy. For the word of the Lord is right, and all his work is done in truth. He loves righteousness and justice. The earth is full of the goodness of the Lord. By the word of the Lord the heavens were made, and all the host of them by the breath of his mouth.
I want you to see what this psalmist is saying in verse 4 and in verse 6. This psalmist is worshiping God based on what he has done with his words, right? Based on what he has done with his words, right? He says in verse 4, for the word of the Lord is right. It is right. Then in verse 6 it says, by the word of the Lord the heavens were made, and all the hosts of them by the breath of what? His mouth. So he is exalting God based on what he has done with his word. That's worship. This song, I don't know what it is. I'm being honest with you. I don't know what it is. This is not worship, guys. This is not worship. Right? We don't worship. We don't sing about what we can do with our words. We worship God based on what he can do with his words. Now, let's look at, I did a search and I looked at the first time the word worship was mentioned in the Bible. And the first time the word worship was mentioned in the Bible, at least in the New King James Version, was in Genesis 22. This wasn't the first act of worship by man, but this is the first time the word worship was mentioned. Okay, so we're going to look at Genesis 22, verse 1 through 5. Let's look at that.
Now it came to pass after these things that God tested Abraham, and said to him, Abraham, and he said, Here I am. Then he said, Take now your son, your only son Isaac, whom you love, and go to the land of Moriah, and offer him there as a burnt offering on one of the mountains, of which I shall tell you. So Abraham rose early in the morning, and saddled his donkey, and took 2 of his young men with him, and Isaac his son. And he split the wood for the burnt offering, and arose and went to the place of which God had told him. Then on the 3rd day Abraham lifted his eyes, and saw the place afar off. And Abraham said to his young men, Stay here with the donkey. The lad and I will go yonder and worship, and we will come back to you.
I want you to understand what's going on, right? So Abraham is being tested to sacrifice his only son. Now, the word only means unique, right? The word only in Greek, in Hebrew, it doesn't mean that it's only the way we just say only. This word means unique, right? Unique, because he wasn't the only. He had a brother, right? Ishmael, right? But this was his only unique son, right? It was a unique son because this was the son of promise. So God told him to sacrifice this unique son of promise, to sacrifice him. So they go in. So he woke up in the morning and he's about to go. He take the wood. He take his son. He takes some of his servants and he's about to go to sacrifice him. And look at verse 5. Look at what he says to his young men. He says, Stay here with the donkey, and the lad and I will go yonder and what? And worship. And then he says, and we will come back to you. So Abraham was called to sacrifice his son. But in Abraham's mind, this is worship to God. This is worship. Right? This is worshiping God. When I'm sacrificing the thing that I love, when I'm sacrificing my unique son that God has called me to, when I'm obedient to God, even though it's difficult, even though it's hard, but I'm doing it out of trust. I'm doing it out of faithfulness. I'm doing it because I fear God. That's called worship. At least in Abraham's mind. So then he says, we will come back to you. Why did he say we will come back to you? Because in Abraham's mind, he believed that God is faithful to his promise that through Isaac, he's going to have a descendants of many nations, right? Through Isaac, he's going to have a multitude of descendants, multitudes of nations, right? So he understands that God is not contradicting, right? Right? People that say the word contradicts itself, it doesn't, right? If you believe it does, show me. So Abraham's mind said, okay, God is not going to contradict his word. So Abraham believed that once he sacrificed his son, God is going to raise him from the dead because God is going to be faithful to his word. That's in Abraham's mind. He believed that Isaac was going to be resurrected. And the book of Hebrews said figuratively, that's what happened, right? Figuratively, that's what happened, right? Because in Abraham's mind, if we read the rest of the story, he was going to do it. It wasn't like, he thought he knew God wasn't gonna let. No, his hand was hit, he was about to strike until the angel called him, right? So I want you to get this. Worship, the first time it's mentioned, it's associated to sacrifice. Worship is associated to sacrifice, right? Now, the first sacrifice that was offered to God, that's recorded in Scripture, was Abel. Cain too, but Cain was rejected. Abel, his sacrifice was received by God, was accepted by God. So Abel's worship was acceptable to God, his sacrifice, right? And if you understand that Abraham sacrificing his son, Abraham sacrificing Isaac, this is a picture of the father sacrificing his son. So this whole sacrifice, this whole worship points to Jesus. Because Jesus is the object of our worship. This song, I don't know what that is. I don't know what this is right here. I have no clue. All right? Now, let's look at Romans 12. And we're going to continue on this worship. Let's go to Romans 12. Romans 12:1.
Chapter 12. I beseech you, therefore, brethren, by the mercies of God, that you present your bodies a living sacrifice, holy, acceptable to God, which is your reasonable service.
Now, some translation says that says which is your spiritual worship, right? So some uses the word service, some uses the word worship, which is the same thing, right? Your reasonable service or your reasonable act of worship. So here we see again, sacrifice, right? Sacrifice is tied to worship. Right? Sacrifice is tied to worship. Right? This time Paul is saying we are to present our bodies a living sacrifice. A living sacrifice. Why not a dead sacrifice? Abel offered a dead sacrifice. Abraham was going to offer a dead sacrifice. In the Old Testament, the priests offered a dead sacrifice. Why a living sacrifice now? Because a dead sacrifice was already offered in Christ Jesus. Because Christ Jesus offered himself unto the Lord, the perfect sacrifice, the perfect lamb, without spot, without blemish. His resurrection now, because he rose from the dead, right? We are alive in him. And now we are to present our bodies a living sacrifice. We are to live every day sacrificially unto God. Every day we are to deny ourselves. The flesh is to die. Every day we are to carry the cross. But we are still physically alive. We are spiritually alive in Christ. So we are presenting our bodies a living sacrifice. Not a dead sacrifice, a living sacrifice. Holy and acceptable to God. That's how we ought to give our bodies to God. Holy and acceptable. Holy means to be set apart. So set apart from the world. Set apart from Satan. Set apart from sin. Set apart from lust. Set apart from the things of this world, right? From the flesh. All right? So that's what worship is. Last verse on worship, Colossians 3:16.
Let the word of Christ dwell in you richly in all wisdom, teaching and admonishing one another in psalms and hymns and spiritual songs, singing with grace in your hearts to the Lord.
Now, so this text highlights what worship songs should be, right? The word of God, the word of Christ, dwelling you richly, abundantly, in all wisdom. Worship songs should be filled with the wisdom and the word of God. Worship songs should be filled with the wisdom and the word of God. Listen, I know our young people, we don't like hymns. Right? A lot of young people don't like hymns. But as I grew in Christ, as I grew in my faith, I appreciate the hymns because it's filled with I'm not saying all hymns are biblical, but majority of them that are, they are filled with the wisdom and the word of God. It's like it's just taking scriptures and making a song out of it. Right? The wisdom and the word of God. Then it says, teaching and admonishing one another in psalms and hymns and spiritual songs, singing with grace in your hearts to the Lord. So worship songs should teach you about Christ. It should teach you about God. I don't know what this song is teaching me about God. I guess it's whatever he has decreed to me. We haven't, the song, the person didn't tell us what God has decreed to us. Right? And we're going to talk about that. But it should teach us about Christ, the attributes of God, the nature of God, the work of Christ, the person of Christ, the ministry of Christ, the power of Christ, his death, his burial, his resurrection, his atonement, his blood, sanctification. It should teach us something about the work and ministry of Christ. Right? Worship songs is singing with grace in your hearts to who? The Lord. Worship songs are singing to the Lord. I don't know what. Listen, who is this song singing to? This is saying, I declare, right? I declare, I believe, it's mine, whatever I want, I have it, I believe it. How is that singing to the Lord? It's not. It's not.